I think that now we can start. Good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me well. Thanks a lot for being with us this morning. So just a quick introduction of myself, as I will be moderating this webinar today. So my name is Elisa de Courcelles. I am a project officer on climate and energy, and I am part of the Covenant of Mayors Europe office. So indeed, for some context, we're here in the framework of the Covenant of Mayors Europe, that is a long-lasting initiative of the European Commission, and that is now bringing together more than 11,000 local governments wanting to secure a better future for their citizens. So I know that most of you in the room today are whether signatories, coordinators, or supporters of the Covenant of Mayors. So you won't need a long explanation about the context and what is the covenant, but of course it's important to highlight a few things. So as you know, the covenant is an initiative that has a bottom-up approach to energy and climate transition, and that now structures around three pillars: mitigation, adaptation, and energy poverty. And all of this is articulating around three ideas that are reducing GHG emission by 55%, strengthening resilience, and alleviating energy poverty. So it is true that the Covenant of Mayors is designed as a tool to provide to local governments in all Europe a framework for their local and energy climate action based on several principles. And one of them, which is particularly relevant here, is the promotion and the exchange of experience, because this is what we're going to do this morning. So in this framework of the Covenant of Mayors, the office is organizing for the past months and also the upcoming years 4 series of webinars that are related to funding and financing. So this webinar aims at enhancing knowledge and providing hands-on related to funding and financing aspects of the transition, with the idea to support signatories in the development and implementation of their sustainable energy and climate action plan. So for what is related to this morning webinar, we are going to focus on some innovative finance options for urban adaptation. So in this sense, we're going to examine the adaptation finance landscape in Europe and showcase some initiatives that offer innovative and resilient solutions. So the objective of this resilient investment avenues is to support European cities in the development of their SECAP and to provide funding opportunities as well for the covenant signatories. And so the solutions that will be presented this morning are coming from 2 very relevant and timely projects, so Climate Fit and Pizza, that you will hear about in a very short time. So each of these initiatives will have 20 minutes to introduce their work, and we will then have some time for Q&A. So please, if you already have some things that came in mind, don't hesitate to put your question in the chat. Now I'm going to give the floor to Marco Carrera Silva from the Climate Fit project for some words related to innovative financing mechanism for adaptation to climate change. Marco, the floor is yours. You're muted for now.
Thank you, Elisa, and good morning, everyone. Pleased to meet you all. I have noticed that there are already some familiar faces, which makes me really happy. I'm taking the opportunity here to introduce you to Climate Fit as an European project exclusively focused on climate adaptation finance. And you might take it as an invitation for us to connect later and explore further potential synergies and collaboration opportunities. I will try to do the presentation in about 15 minutes so that if you have some clarifying questions, we can address them right away, and then we use the Q&A later on for more in-depth discussions. My name is Marco, and I'm the project coordinator of this project, which has started in September 2023 and will last until the end of 2026. So we have already achieved some results, and I'll show a little bit about them. But there is still significant work to do, and a lot of results which I will introduce and you would be able to capitalize on later on. So I think to start with, it's always good to bring us to the same page. I also believe that you all, as signatories, are very much aware of the urgency we face when it comes to building resilience in cities across Europe. We have more intense and frequent extreme weather events that are resulting in unprecedented losses, both in social and economic losses. The news every week shows that. And so public authorities have a pressing need to implement their adaptation strategies and plans. But to make that happen, there is a need for finance. And so public authorities have been stretching as much as possible their public budgets to meet the many unexpected needs that came in the last years, including climate adaptation, and realize that public budgets are not sufficient. And therefore, there is a need to tap into both funding and financing from the private sector. Funding, meaning here money that is non-refundable, so in the case of grants, for instance, and financing, meaning money that is to be refunded, such as, for instance, loans. So we have a challenge, and that is that climate adaptation requires large amounts of finance, and it has to come from both public and private sources. And we, Climate Fit, propose facilitating, therefore, the collaboration between public authorities and particularly the financial sector, so that the supply and the demand of finance meet. And as a result, we hope to unlock further capital across Europe to bridge the already mentioned climate adaptation finance gap. So in Climate Fit, we work with the 4 leading territories, France, Belgium, Italy, and Romania. And until the end of the project, we went together with these 4 territories, demonstrate how we can build that bridge, enable the collaboration between public authorities and the financial sector. And we'll be doing that through different means. One is, helping both stakeholder groups, public authorities and financial institutions, to build an understanding of the current adaptation finance landscape. What are the barriers? What are the enablers? What is driving some best case practices, already demonstrating what it is possible. This is work that we have already done, and in a bit I'll show you some key results. We also want to build capacity of public authorities and financial institutions, so we provide capacity building training. We want also to help public authorities develop pipelines of bankable adaptation projects. So we are providing them with tools that helps them develop investment strategies and investment plans. You can consider these investment strategies, investment plans as plugins into their actual existing adaptation strategies and adaptation plans. And we want also to help financial institutions diversifying their financial products so that they best meet the needs of adaptation projects proposed by public authorities. We will be also doing some work around policy, although it's not at the core of our work. We know that policy, particularly EU policy on sustainable finance, it has a key role in advancing adaptation finance from the perspective of financial institutions. So we are currently, actually, we just had a webinar yesterday with some financial institutions trying to understand how they perceive the development of adaptation finance policy and the regulatory framework, and how we could provide recommendations to the European Commission to enable those financial institutions to better address the lack of adaptation finance. So I've already mentioned that we are providing capacity building, we are facilitating collaboration, and we are providing also critical insights to both financial groups, stakeholder groups, to help bringing more clarity when it comes to local and regional governments. Our focus is in helping them attracting and orchestrating public and private funding and financing. So we want to support municipalities and regional governments in better managing public funding, coupled with private funding and financing. When it comes to financial institutions such as banks, investors, and insurers, our aim is to support them in the identification of adaptation finance opportunities, adaptation investment opportunities, and how to access and assess those investment opportunities. It is one of the greatest challenges that they face, actually, is the assessment. So if we focus on more tangible tools that we will be developing and will be helpful for both the stakeholder groups, we have already taken stock of the finance barriers and enablers. And as I mentioned before, we'll be developing investment strategies, plans, and eventually also 4 investment cases with our leader territories. These particular 3 last blocks will help public authorities gain a better understanding of what is the finance gap that they have, what is the finance gap per sector, what are their priorities, so what sectors they want to focus on in terms of attracting private funding and financing. And then with the investment plans, get specific into how the different projects in that sector shall be structured financially, so that the different funding and financing sources come together, just like a cake. You may imagine the different slices, or a puzzle, better. I think the analogy of a puzzle is better suited. So how the different pieces of a puzzle, finance puzzle, come together in order to create a solid financial structure for the different projects, and then negotiate that financial structure with the different private and public funding and funding providers. And that is what we'll be doing with 4 of our leader territories, and that forms the investment cases. So I've mentioned a couple of times that we have already done some work in understanding the adaptation finance landscape. Here I bring just the very top insights. Both public authorities and financing and investment entities lack knowledge and expertise. On the public authorities side, they lack knowledge and expertise on finance, and on the other hand, financing institutions like knowledge and expertise in climate adaptation, but they both share the challenge of quantifying economic and monetary benefits of adaptation. That is something that is common to both. More specific, barriers to public authorities is the staff shortages and the siloed governance that we all heard of and work on every day. Limited experience in public-private collaboration, although PPPs have gained attention, it's still something that too few municipalities have experienced. And the reluctance to adopt NBS due to unclear economic terms. Uncertainty is also another barrier that public authorities face. When we look into financial institutions, it's the regulatory uncertainty. I think more so now with the changes in I wouldn't call direction, but at least speed of climate policy coming from the European Union. There are also another challenge financial institutions face is the lack of bankable projects. So although some financial institutions have, climate strategies or sustainable strategies that, push them to invest more in sustainable projects, there is a lack of available projects where the money can flow into. And then there is a lack of track record in terms of climate adaptation projects, which does not, build enough confidence and allow financial institutions to do due diligence and assessment of the risk return profiles of projects. So currently we are very much focused on capacity building. Our capacity building is focused on the public authorities we directly collaborate with. We are working with 20, which I'll be presenting in a moment. And the capacity building is, as you may now realize, aligned with our 4 main contributions, which is the awareness raising, which was associated to the adaptation finance landscape, and then the development of investment strategies, plans, and cases. So every time we release a new tool for the development of investment strategies, we run training with the public authorities that help them gain understanding, practical understanding of those tools. We provide them the guidance, initial guidance that then will allow them to do the work themselves. Nevertheless, the capacity building materials will also be available to you and any other public authority. You can already find some of the materials on our website, but I'll tell you more about other spaces where they will be available. So here you can see the 20 different local or regional governments we collaborate with. They're scattered across Europe, addressing different climate risks, different sectors, and different biographical regions. Our 4 leader territories are Flanders in Belgium, Strasbourg in France. Then we have Alba Iulia in Romania and Brescia in Italy. Those are the 4 territories which we will be working throughout the whole pathway from investment strategies through investment plans to investment cases. And to help us collaborate closely with these public authorities, we have facilitating organizations. They are our contact points in these 20 territories. For each territory, we are also developing a network of financial institutions, which we then want to couple with the public authorities, and a special group of stakeholders we are engaging. We call them champions, are financial institutions which have already invested in climate adaptation, so they have already deployed some innovative financial mechanisms or instruments, and so they serve as inspiration, but also a source of information that will help us then support the development of investment plans and investment cases in the other public authorities. Something else that we have already done, which I thought could be of interest to some of you, is the production of maturity assessment frameworks. We have developing one for public authorities and one for financing and investment entities. The one on the top will allow public authorities to do like a self-check on how mature they are in terms of attracting private funding and financing. There is a list of criteria which, through a self-assessment, will allow public authorities to understand what are its strengths and weaknesses, and therefore what kind of work can be done internally in order to build capacity and make the public authority better suited to tap into public-private financing. We are also establishing local resilience task forces across the different territories. So I've mentioned several times that we want to facilitate collaboration between public authorities and financing institutions. And with the way we do that is through the establishment of these task forces that not only bring these two groups, but also others such as NGOs, citizens, consultants as well. So we have started with the establishment of 4 local resilience task forces. You can consider this as facilitated spaces for the engagement of the different stakeholders that are necessary for making adaptation finance happen. We started with 4. We will scale up to 8, and we are actually currently running a call for other public authorities across Europe that are not part of the project to join an European network of local resilience task forces led by ICLEI that will allow any public authority to connect to our consortium public authorities, and in that way tap on the experience they have on top of access to all the different tools and guidance for adaptation finance. So here is an invitation. I'll pass the link on the chat, which will allow you to get more information on the call right away, but feel invited to apply as well. And to close, we will also be developing a one-stop shop. This is the other space besides our website, where you'll be able to find all the different outputs of our project. And it is there as well, where in the future we aim at creating a online marketplace, which will allow public authorities and financial stakeholders to meet. Just a few numbers to give you a sense of the size of the project. I already mentioned that starting in 2023, we'll finish at the end of 26. We are in total 22 consortium members, and we have a total of 29 deliverables associated to a budget of about 6 million. This was my short presentation of Climate Fit. I hope it provided you an overview of the project and some of the key results we have already achieved, as well as some of the outputs, some of the work we are doing and outputs that will be useful for you. I'm now available for any clarifying question. I know we are short in time, but we also have the Q&A that will allow us then to dive deeper into some of the topics that you might want to. Thank you so much. Back to you, Elisa.
Yes, Thanks a lot, Marco. So indeed, if anyone has a immediate reaction, please don't hesitate now. But just like a huge thank you, Marco, for your presentation and for your insight on the project and what it can bring to cities. I particularly like noted what you said about how you're trying to put this finance puzzle all together. I think this is very interesting. I see a question from Pavla. If you want to take the floor, please don't hesitate, because everyone can react here. Or hello, you're still muted.
Do you hear me now?
Yes.
Good. Hello, I'm the national coordinator for the Czech Republic for the Covenant of Mayors, and I was in the meanwhile checking about the 2 Czech cities which were on the list, and I see Liberec is the signatory of the covenant, while Jihlava isn't. So I wanted to ask whether is it part of your advisory service that you kind of promote to join the Covenant of Mayors to the city so that they develop the action plan SECAP, or is it not part of the communication that you are having with the cities?
We are exploring synergies across projects and initiatives as much as we can. And the Covenant of Mayors is, of course, an initiative that we want to materialize synergies with. So any public authority that is not a signatory of the Covenant and collaborates with Climate Fit will be recommended to do that, given the services and benefits of joining the network.
Okay, thank you. And I had also second question. So does the cooperation start from the bottom, from the level of the local municipalities, or are you also trying to cooperate with the authorities on the national level?
So our point of departure is the local authority, the municipal or regional government. And when necessary, depending on the type of strategy or plan project developed by the municipality, we will then bring in the national government, and we will do that through the local resilience task forces, those spaces, facilitated spaces of collaboration, bringing together all the different stakeholders that are necessary to unlock private financing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you both. One last question on the chat also for you, Marco, is related to knowing if the maturity matrix is already accessible online.
I don't think it is at the moment. You can find an introduction of it and some examples of its application in the deliverable 1.1 Adaptation Finance Landscape. The tool itself is still being finalized. There are some tweaks based on the first tests we did, and when the time comes, we'll make it available as well. We are keen on further testing the methodology, and we know that the methodology will not be at its highest level of maturity. There will be always a room for improvement. So we are also keen on collaborating with other organizations that have an interest in developing such a maturity assessment framework further on.
Super. Thanks for your feedback. But I think that now we're gonna pass on to the next presentation. So Adrienne, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Okay, you can see my presentation?
Yes.
Thank you very much for this invitation in this webinar of the Covenant of Mayors. My name is Adriaan Perels. I'm located in Helsinki. I'm a consultant in Tursky Consulting. And until my retirement last year, I also worked as a professor in climate economics in the Finnish Meteorological Institute. This presentation is based on the work of many, so all the names that who somehow contributed to this one way or the other are listed here. So I'm not going in detail in how the project is organized because that's relatively complex. So I focus on the aims, what we want to do and what we are doing and what our outcomes are so far. So the aims of PISA are to close adaptation gaps with special reference to the role of insurance. That is in three ways. In the first way, we want to take care a state-of-the-art review of what's going on, what are the obstacles, opportunities, how things are organized in different countries, etc., as a way to assist citizens and public and private decision makers to understand how insurances could be used. Based on these insights, then, in parallel with it, we are already developing, co-developing alternative concepts of how you could solve some of the challenges with climate change-induced changes in hazard risks. And based on that work, and partly in parallel, we are co-designing and piloting new insurance products, so really product ideas that could really turn into market viable products for different kind of hazards in different countries. The website of the project is mentioned in the last one of the last sheets. There is an overview of all the partners, I think 12 or 13. Please realize it's still work in progress. There is quite some results already, but it's still work in progress, which may even sort of affect some of the preliminary results we have. The project will conclude in autumn 2026. A few words on an adaptation gap, how that is understood, especially in relation if we're talking about insurance. So probably you all have an idea that an adaptation gap refers to the difference between the recognized need for adaptation and the actual implemented adaptation. This is also tried to be shown in the graph on the right. So on the bottom side, the axis shows the degree to which the climate change risk is supposedly covered by adaptation efforts and by risk-sharing mechanisms, which is insurances, but to some extent other things as well. And then there remains an adaptation gap. And over time, the vertical axis, we try to close this adaptation gap by increasing our adaptation efforts, but also to a varying extent by improving and broadening insurance. And there's also an interaction between implementation of adaptation and the efforts in insurance. The point is, however, if you just promise more insurance, you may even demotivate adaptation because you would be covered anyhow. So that one of the big challenges is to design or redesign insurance in a way that it motivates to adapt more. At the same time, it may also still be needed to take care that things that are as yet not covered by insurances in the future, these risks will be covered by insurance as well. So that means, in short, that better and more insurance covers some of the gaps more directly. But probably more importantly even is that well-designed climate adaptation aware insurances promote implementation of adaptation measures. And that's a challenge to design insurances in that way and also take care it concurs well with adaptation planning. So insurance can affect risk management activities in many ways. So because it's very information intensive, so you can take care, we understand hazards better and can anticipate them better. If we know that, we can also better reduce exposure and vulnerability, and promote that also through insurances by helping to directly or indirectly that the information is better on these points and people can decide about that. On the other hand, it means also if you think about weather and climate information and warnings, for example, you can improve the preparedness and response when things are changing or when extreme events are unfolding. And then for insurances themselves, for example, one practice is that to take care that judgment of claims and payout and the clarity of when you would get money and under what conditions is improved all the time. And people are explained in advance, well, what is covered and what all that kind of things. And that means that the recovery from any mishaps is much better. And in that way, also improves resilience. There are also other elements, but let's not go too deep given the time. Next to the pilots, about which I will say more in a minute, we have also several sub-studies, as I already indicated, that are sort of assessing how things are going on now and also why there are obstacles and why some of these things are difficult. You will notice that some of the observations here will link quite nicely what was just presented in the previous presentation. So ensuring adaptation innovations, for example, or even in particular nature-based solutions, is challenging due to the performance uncertainty, because either these things are new or because of many different factors that affect the eventual performance of the solution, make it difficult, for example, for an insurance company to assess what would be the right premium level or what is the maximum payout level you can promise, etc., etc. And if you cannot do that properly, it gets too risky for an insurance company to offer these. The only way to solve that, on the one hand, of course, you can try to, through research and simulations, you can to some extent improve that, and otherwise it means you have to experiment and share the knowledge about these experiments, for example. The current coverage of different indemnity insurances varies enormously across countries for many reasons. Of course, there are different hazard levels, but also different regulations. Affordability for insurance is different, and also data availability is not the same. And that all affects. That also means, again, that if you want to improve that we can learn from some common aspects here, but at the same time, if you really want to understand what you have to do in a certain country or even in a certain region, you have to understand well the particularities of that region or of that market sector, for example. As it comes to innovation, we can indeed already see that parametric insurance is gradually emerging, especially in agriculture, and also sort of a interesting mixture between parametric and indemnity insurance is community insurance. There are also some examples where that is tried now, and that seems promising as well. Especially also could be interesting for, like, say, neighborhood action in cities. Households tend to have lower insurance uptake rates than companies, which is, of course, also important from a socioeconomic point of view and an equity point of view. Insurance penetration rates across Europe, we learn that they tend to be higher if more public-private cooperation is going on, both with respect to proper regulation as well as in terms of how you share data, for example. And no ad hoc state relief or a strong inclination to do that every time is also important to have better penetration rates. If you anyhow believe that the state or the region will pay you out, will rescue you, why would you take an insurance? And another difficult thing is a good balance between affordability and risk-based rates. So affordability means that you, and equity, solidarity rates would mean that everybody pays the same fair rate across the country, regardless of the actual risk that you are exposed to. The other extreme is that it would be totally risk-based. So in different part of the country or even in different part of the cities, you may pay different premiums, in fact. Well, that both sort of principles have their problems. So you have to somehow find a very good mixture of the two, often in combination with also the other elements mentioned already. And then you can see that you get better penetration rates with a quite good functioning insurance system. Denmark, to our opinion, scored best in the review we made of all the EU countries. Another aspect is really important and also came up in the previous presentation to some extent is shortfalls in data availability or data transparency. Where do you find it and is it fit for me? Access to data, both physically in terms of skills you need and also economically, are important in terms of getting insurance developing better going on. And interestingly, even though we often think about the meteorological hazard data, these are quite well organized, even though there are still things to be wished for as well there. But most important is to get a much better grip and better generalized and quality assured systems for impact and dedicated risk data, which then have to be integrated in a more general InsurTech strategy. In insurance, there's a lot of other things are going on related to big data and lots of other things going on there that other ways of observation is also possible nowadays. So, and all these things count, and insurance should take better care in cooperation with public authorities to have these data issues better addressed. So the recommendation is to promote or even insist on sharing data and sharing experiences across public and private sector. And there are some examples of that. One is the Norwegian Hazard Damage Knowledge Bank, which is cooperation between local authorities and the Norwegian insurance sector. The other thing is the Open Insurance Initiative, for which the website is mentioned. So we have 5 pilots in PISA. I will tell about 2 of them that have typically to do with cities, even though the wildfire, as we, for example, saw now regrettably in Los Angeles, but also in Athens a few years ago, can also be really relevant for cities. So we have a pilot starting in the Netherlands and then going through to the Nordic countries and the Mediterranean countries about green roofs, looking to what are the net benefit potentials if it would be implemented at a certain scale, and what kind of business model would you need to take care of this. One of the problems is here that a part of the benefits is public, but the investor is often private and doesn't get the part of the benefits as a private investor. So you have a mismatch there that has to be addressed. And the other example is an example of, in fact, empowerment of private homeowners. So may not be aware of the risks that their homes are exposed to in terms of soil problems related to drying of soils, especially clay soils. And that helps them, that assessor is helping them to making them aware, and it's guiding them through an own assessment, and after that also helping them with how to have to do next steps. I'm not going through the other pilots now, and I will explain in a bit more detail 2 of these pilots. So the clay shrink swell building damage assessor, I'm sorry, I didn't invent the name for this. It starts in France, and especially in the Lyon area first, where this is a fairly large problem. Then an upscaling to the rest of France, and finally we also look to how can you generalize this in Europe, because this problem is also existing elsewhere in Europe. And the next step would even be to think how can you adapt the same approach for other kind of climate change induced hazards. So with this online tool, which is very user-friendly, at the moment it's available in French and English. It's not yet open yet, so I cannot give you a link yet, but hopefully in half a year or a year, it should be able to share a link. It has an element of awareness raising. There's an educational aspect. It's also really explained why this is an issue and how it works and how it could affect your house and how it eventually can affect your financial situation. Then there is the option for risk assessment of your own property. If you give the address, then all the relevant data are already in fact known for that very specific area. And then there is, depending on the outcome of the risk assessment, there is advice for next steps. Here you have some other screen dumps of this system where you can see indeed that where you see the education aspect, where it's going deep. There are all kinds of other layers behind this, to very user friendly to go through it, to explain you why this is a point, and also in sort of understandable language. And then indeed a guidance to, if you have a worrisome outcome, what can you do? The other option is the green roofs. We going through 3 steps again. So first, there was in the Netherlands a more deeper assessment, because insurance companies have already been experimenting with to see how the existence of green roofs might be possible to link to the insurance product. The next step is to explore that also in the Nordic countries by means of interviews, and the same goes for some Mediterranean countries in a final step. So here the problem is that the benefits of green roofs may not necessarily accrue totally to the investor of the green roof. So you have a green roof is also really advantage for the investor, like for the homeowner, because you have a lower energy bill, for example. The indoor climate can be a bit more pleasant. It also has a better longevity compared to conventional roofs. But then the other benefits, for example, related to heat waves, that also, if there are a lot of green roofs in the same area, in case of heat waves or in case of pluvial, so intensive rain-related urban floods, then that a lot of green roofs in the same area will sort of attenuate then the risks. But that only counts if you have enough of the roofs in that area, and then the benefits are for everybody, but not only for the ones that have been investing in the roof. So you may see it back to some extent in your house price, but that may not compensate enough for it. At the same time, there was also done analysis of on heat waves and on and also flood risks in the Netherlands. And here you see, for example, the example for what per square meter is per square meter per year is the benefit for several adaptation cases and for several types of houses. The whole study is much larger, and also other risks are taken care of, but it goes far too deep to present that right now. So what were some main findings? The technical fitness of the roof and the consequent extent of preparation cost has really significant impacts on what kind of benefits you can achieve. And of course, the other thing that's really important, as indicated before, how important are the public benefits in the total benefit cost relation? And in a significant part, that is really the case. So you have to find a mechanism to somehow compensate the homeowner for that one way or the other. Then some of the benefits indeed also really only start to work if there are enough people in the same area that invest in this. Otherwise, you don't go over threshold level, and it is not notable enough. And that means there's a social choice dilemma, because you as a municipality, for example, if you want to promote this in cooperation with insurance, how do you take care that you achieve this limit? On the other hand, we must say learning curves for construction costs are still going on, so there is still really significant cost reduction possible. Another element which was not so much tackled, at least not completely, what biodiversity benefits. And in a part of the cities that may also really be a significant additional public benefit, again, which another reason to promote that if it's high enough. Then in that same basic Dutch study, there were also interviews, a set of interviews and surveys among Dutch insurers to understand how they look at it. So there was really interest, and some insurances had already started to experiment a bit with it, but what was now the overall feeling of what these green roofs could mean for them in relation to property-oriented insurances. And well, the answers also again sort of resonate quite well with what was told in the previous presentation. So overall, the business case is not well enough developed yet, also because several elements of it are not very clear. Awareness among many of the homeowners is not very good, even though it is improving. Then overall, for insurance companies, in fact, it's quite difficult to develop it. There is not already developed a lot of elements for which you can easily sort of concoct a product, so to speak. And what is then the role of the insurances in this case and in climate adaptation in general? On the other hand, really insurances can do a lot, like premium differentiation and of course information provision. Also discuss with authorities about policies, and they can do a lot themselves by informing themselves better and create better databases, learn from earlier practice and exchange experiences on that, etc. There is this example of the Dutch bank ABN AMRO, which did a really very thorough assessment of dwellings in the Netherlands regarding a whole set of climate change-induced risks that could affect the value of the house and may imply also the need for reparations or better preparations. That means an investment need, and then at the same time look at the financial capability of the homeowners and then see where you may get a problem. So low financial capability and a significant need for improvement would mean that you get an extra risk also for the bank, or for, in this case, also insurance. Insurance, again, could play a role in also a sort of lifting these, making these risks better visible for homeowners, and at the same time helping them to cope with it in a manageable way. And at the same time, this is a very nice example of taking care that if you organize the data very well, then you start to be able to really get a lot out of it and do your product development much better. So the key takeaways, two sets. One is sort of, does it basically really work? And on the other hand, what would you need then? So yes, what we can say already, it's appropriately designed adaptation-aware insurance products do support better functioning and better financial climate-proof property markets. And also more broadly, they support the socioeconomic resilience of cities. There will be less disruption and better recovery. However, what does it take to have a viable adaptation-aware insurance products? So one thing is indeed this data cooperation and open access. That is really important to take care, and to also take care that is embedded on the one hand, for example, with InsurTech strategies, on the other hand, for example, with smart city strategies. That's a way how you could merge these things and get things going. But that needs indeed very good collaboration with public and private sectors regarding this data sharing, but also certain regulations, not on the data sharing only, but also on what kind of how you allocate risks and responsibilities and what kind of insurance types are allowed, etc. And of course, that means in turn then again that you need awareness campaigns, information empowerment, as this tool I showed, and demonstration projects. So finally, some next steps. We produce several tools and data that will be openly available, and a good part of it we also move to the Joint Research Center Risk Data Hub, which is a very good place for advanced risk analysis data that could be used by insurance companies, for example, also in cooperation with cities to develop certain products. The pilots will go on, and based on that, we can produce some market potential indications for the insurance products or for these assessor applications and that kind of thing. And there will be still coming several policy briefs and webinars. There will also be a concluding seminar in autumn 2026. There are a lot of resources that you can find in these two links. Finding something about cooperation. There are some other closely related projects on nature-based solutions and on climate services, so to speak. We also cooperate with GRC, ICLEI, also Insurance Europe, and we are very keen on further cooperation. Welcome. So you can contact us. And also the other project, Climate Fit, looks like a project for which it is interesting to further discuss matters. Thank you very much. These are all the partners from different countries. And finally, here, some contact information in case you have deeper questions. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Adrian, for your presentation. Very timely too. So now we're running a bit out of time, but if anyone has a question, please don't hesitate. It's the moment. We can stay 5 more minutes, I guess, everyone. No, not yet. One question that I had for both of you, but as a bit of a wrap up, let's say, would be what are the main takeaways that the cities and signatories that are in the room now can take out of your initiative? You just mentioned some, Adrian, and Marco also, the local resilience task force also would be something. So if there is anything you want to mention now as a takeaway, please go for it. You have 1 minute.
Anyhow,
go, Adrian. I'll go after you.
Okay, yeah, we would be very happy to get further feedback if cities are interested in this. Yes, we especially, for example, as you saw in the eastern part of the EU, we have less representation. Yet one of the insurance companies, AXA, is also working there. But we would be very happy because affordability, for example, is more an issue in some of those countries. So having a discourse with them, we would be very happy to do that. Yeah, please contact us.
Yeah, your contact will be shared in the presentations anyway to the participants, so yes. You can be reached out. And Marco?
So I think a key takeaway for public authorities here present is that financial institutions are keen on investing in climate adaptation. But the space for collaboration between you and them has not been there. And as a consequence, there hasn't been enough projects that are attractive for financial institutions, and consequently not enough capital flowing to climate adaptation. So those are good news. There is an interest on both sides. And we, Climate Fit, are providing the space, the tools, the expertise, knowledge, insights that are necessary. We are testing different approaches. We are creating new tools. We are gaining experience, which you can also make use of by becoming part of our European network of local resilience task forces. You can find the link on the chat. You are more than welcome to contact me if you need further information or to apply directly if it is of your interest.
Thanks a lot, Marco. There is a last question in the chat for you, Adrian. I don't know if you see it, but related to the pilot in the Netherlands, and what is the city and how did it work?
In the Netherlands, in fact, it's not just one city. It's in several cities because it's a nationally operating insurance company that piloted that. And well, we can give the details if they take contact with us. And also there's a Dutch partner as well. The Free University in Amsterdam is one of the partners in the whole project that can give further information as well. It looks like there's also a National Green Roof Association who is working very hard. There's a lot going on. So it is, in fact, it is sort of starting off now to getting more serious. And also insurance companies, I showed this example of the ABN and also so things are really moving. And I think one of the key elements is taking care you collaborate, seeking collaboration and also taking care to dare to share data. One of the problems is also really a lot of organizations are sitting on the data and confidentiality issues, yes, are there, but you can solve all these things. And the benefits from sharing are much larger than just sitting on it, really. That's the main obstacle, really.
Okay. But thanks a lot for your feedback. So indeed, contacts will be shared so that then all these questions can be get more in depth via mail between participants and you. So thanks a lot for your time today, Marco and Adrien, for your presentation, and to the participant for coming and listening to us. So yeah, now it's time to wrap up. So this series of webinar on activating your SECAP is closing with this webinar, but there are some new webinars that will come in the upcoming months that I was mentioning in the beginning. So stay tuned because this series on funding and financing will keep going. In case you have any question, you have my email address also, so don't hesitate to reach out. Thanks today again, and now I wish you a nice continuation of the day. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you very much. Goodbye,
Thank you.
everyone.
It was a pleasure. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Likewise.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye. Thank you.
Okay.